Hello and welcome to one more episode of our Home Chefies conversations. We call it Boot Camp. And here we speak to our fabulous jury members who come from, represent different worlds of branding and marketing. And today is my absolute pleasure to bring to you a much awarded design communicator, design communications expert, Ashwini Deshpande. And she's a co-founder of Elephant Design, and she came out of college, and right then she and now her husband, I think they set it up together, because at that time there was no agency sort of focusing on design. But before that, and before we get into work, Ashwini just told me that it's during the lockdown that she lost her fear of cooking. So Ashwini, you want to tell us something about that?
Yeah, I think that's really, some of us really sort of have this luck that I didn't like cooking. I'm not a foodie, and I didn't have to cook almost all my life. So I've just been fortunate to sort of get somebody or the other do it for me. And Pune is a pretty easy place to get food from. So, one never had to cook. And then we had this whole lockdown and, no help coming home. And I had this, I was like worried and scared of cooking because I had never done it. And then when I went into the kitchen with this compulsion to do it, I sort of took it upon myself like any other design challenge I would take. And I started looking at who are the users, and that's my family. And then what do they like and what do they not like, and so on. And then I just went about it in kind of a methodical way. And slowly I found kind of a rhythm. And slowly I found some taste and textures and colors. And I think at least the fear is gone. I won't say I'm a great cook right now, but I think I'll get there.
Yeah, this is so amazing, Ashwini. So I must say, way back in the 80s, I think we are more or less in similar generations. So we were on seventh standard, and there was this lady called Mrs. Mukherjee, who
Mhm.
was a chemistry teacher, and back in Calcutta, and she had her quirks. So as kids, how we are, so we would find it a bit funny and stuff like that. And then and she would keep breaking the chalk when she would write, and she'd get covered with, with chalk. And very very sweet elderly lady, and we were gundas then, as you are should be when you're in the seventh standard. And she said that, look, I know that you find chemistry very this thing, but it's really like cooking. Where she said that if you think of cooking, if you think that you're taking different elements together, then you're applying heat, you're blending them, and then they take completely different form. And that's what chemistry is. And what you said, you brought a design thinking into the.
I did. I did. I don't know if it worked, but they survived.
So, folks, I must say that I'm very, very indebted, both of us and at Book of Workshop also, to Ashwini, because I think that she was the first jury member whom I approached, and she, without a thought, she said yes, because my wife Kainaz is part of the jury, and they've known each other professionally, and they've been part of many advertising juries. And I said, let's tap on her expertise, and she said yes. So I was very excited because design per se is very important to any form of branding and for home chefs as well. But having said that, in this conversation, we try to understand what is design from practical point of view, what is the impact it has on branding, and what can home chefs do. So I'm so glad that Ashwini started cooking. So now she'll think as a home chef. Who knows?
Baby steps.
Next year there'll be an
Who
elephant's kitchen.
knows? Who knows? Instead of the jury, I might be just, entering this
Competing next time.
competition. Yeah. Who knows?
So Ashwini, tell us a bit about what is design. Well, like what excited you to take it up and be in it right from the beginning.
Okay, design. Well, I don't know if I can define design even after whatever 35, 37 odd years. It's kind of a vast subject, but design is something which is an intentional journey towards solving a challenge or a problem in a meaningful way and in a delightful way, if possible. So many of the ads that we land up doing on our day-to-day basis, we land up designing them in a way. So design doesn't have to be something which is just a pretty looking, superficial, pleasing to the eye kind of a thing, but it is
Oh,
something that works well for the person it is intended for. So many a times we think that something is so simple, what is the design in it? And that's really the answer in that. that something is so simple that you don't, the design is not glaring at you, and it's easy on you, and that's, that's probably the perfect design.
That's I'm going to interlink it with something which Anushri of ITC Design had said. Sorry, ITC Digital had said in an earlier chat,
Hmm.
where she was talking about social media and
Right,
in the context of home chefs, and she said that what works well is that when, say, the food or the presentation looks real versus something which is very manicured or very
right,
stylized.
right,
You know,
right,
food which looks like a painting
right.
versus food which looks like food. So, Ashwini, can you give us some examples, either of a case which you've worked on, any industry, or anything else which sort of explains what you mean, that in terms of design to solve a problem or towards a solution?
Kalyan, interestingly, I worked on many food brands, food and beverage brands, and many of them snacks, right from snacks to spices to ready to eat to ready to cook, and so on. Many, many categories. And in each of the categories, there is a certain need and there is a certain reason why people reach out to those. And what we normally try and do is when we are building a brand, we try and build the paths to purchase or paths to reaching out something. So, for example, if you're reaching out and buying your spices, what is it that you'll be more concerned about? You'll be concerned about the purity and authenticity of ingredients. Where have they come from? Have they come from the right place? And so on. If you are buying something which is a complex spice, let's say a mixed spice or a blended spice, then you will be concerned about whether the recipe is right. Is the ratio and proportion right, because it's a blend of many spices. If you're buying something which is ready to cook, then you would be worried about the taste. So there are different ways and paths to reaching out for something in food. If you're buying snacks, then you'll be most worried about or concerned about the texture, the taste, the shape, the convenience. So various things. So when you're presenting food, you have to see the reason behind why somebody would want to reach out for it, and that's really how you would try and present it. So you probably don't need to show the ingredients when you're showing a snack like, let's say, a chip or a kurkure, but you do need to show the chili and where it comes from if you're showing it on chili powder, right? So building any brand is something like that, and it's not just for food, for anything. So when you're presenting food, I think what's very important is to try and build a scenario of who is it for, and who is that person who's going to be reaching out, and is going to be whose need are you fulfilling. And if you look at that depth, and if you kind of build your whole scenario around that person, or a multiple personas, it may not be just one, it may be more. Most likely you're going to build a great brand, because you have literally thought through their mind. Their mind map is constructed in your mind, and you're literally mirroring that. So that's really how a brand can be built, and it doesn't really need anything fancier than that. It just needs thinking about the user or consumer.
Yeah, you put it across in such a clear cut way that it's really amazing, and I think it's very important for home chefs what you said, because the home chefs are largely people who love to cook. Yeah.
Right.
So they don't necessarily come from a business background or
Sure.
commercial background, and they've never thought of it that way. But now they're retailing their food, and the first thing which becomes important is, like you said, that when you're retailing your food, it's retail, right? You want the person to purchase it, and then so it's different from cooking for your grandson or your husband or your
Absolutely.
your grandmom or something like that, because it's you don't want a business transaction to happen, and therefore you need to understand that who's your customer, and what would they want from this. But that's really lovely, and I think that would give a lot of focus when you're building the brand or designing the menu or the packaging. That's so. You said you've been working with a lot of food brands. Are there any trends which you'd like to share, which you've been seeing in terms of what customers seem to be wanting?
Yeah, I think especially in the last year, quite a few things have changed, and last year has been like an eye opener for many of the food brands as well, because they are trying to see what their relevance is in many cases. and probably also trying to focus their products or develop new products based on whatever the new emerging needs are. But couple of things very evident. One is we are missing going to restaurants. So we are missing the kind of fancier food that earlier was probably once a week or probably even twice a week for some people. And while we do miss the socializing, and that cannot be replaced by eating at home or just Zoom calls, but maybe food craving itself can be substituted by getting something home or making something at home which is like a restaurant cuisine. So a lot of work is being done in developing things that are almost cooked, semi-cooked, gravies, mixes, which give you that convenience of cooking that at home and serving a restaurant, what's called restaurant like. And earlier it used to be home style. Home style was a big deal, but now everybody is at home and eating home style all the time. So now restaurant like is the new thing. The other thing we've seen a lot is, all of us have seen in some form or the other people putting out their very beautifully plated dishes. So people are cooking much more and sharing much more. And what we say as a trend, which has been there last couple of years, is we eat with our eyes first, and of course that has been there always, but it's far more evident through Instagram and all such media, that you can see what somebody is eating even if not share it on the same table. So a lot of WhatsApp photograph sharing of food is happening among families and friends and communities and so on. And it's almost like I've known of neighbors who cook the same dish but are not eating together because they can't. But
So it's
hey,
like a
you
virtual potluck.
almost, hey, you made this and I made that too, and that's whatever. So eating with eyes has become even greater of a trend. So food must look good. That's a much bigger trend. So even home cooked food has to look good now, because that's the only access we have to fancy looking food.
I think those are two lovely points which you made, Ashwini, and that's right because earlier it was about home style, but the fact is that we are missing the restaurant experience, and there are restaurants, five-star hotels, as well as home chefs who are now trying to do something different in terms of how the food is reaching one. You know, so instead of just being in the plastic dabbas, the way it would come earlier.
Yeah.
And the other very important point which you made is about the visual appeal.
Yes.
So I am guessing, Ashwini, please correct me if I'm wrong, that if I'm a home chef, the visual appeal first of all starts with how I present my food on say Instagram, Facebook, or
Right.
WhatsApp.
Right.
Um, but I also think an important part is that when, as a consumer, when you open the dabba, how does the food look? I'll give a very simple example. So there's a Bengali dish called lau chingri, which is lauki with prawns in it. And there was a Bengali home chef called Ananya
Mm-hmm.
Banerjee, part of our menu, and I ordered it recently. So
Mm-hmm.
it came in a basic plastic dabba. Okay.
Okay.
But when I opened it, first there was a lauki at the base. So it's slightly, greenish color, slightly turmeric and all that. And there were prawns inside. But what she did was like she put a few shrimp on top, like how in a
Right.
hummus you
Right.
put
Right.
the chana on top. And
Right.
that made so much difference, even when it came in a plastic dabba. Which
Sure.
brings me to one question which, a lot of home chefs wonder about, and that's where maybe some guidance from you that many of them work with just basic phones and sometimes helped by their kids or stuff like that, or stuff, and they can't really bring out the same quality of photographer with say an Instagram food influencer or
True.
a photographer would,
True.
or the restaurants or the hotels or the professional chefs who would have whole teams who are taking these pictures. So then they worry that how can we make our work look visually appealing. So, any tips from you on that front?
Yeah, I think it is, of course, a challenge to make your food look as amazing as it tastes. It's always a challenge. And we do a lot of food photography with professionals and professional food stylists and so on. And the kind of tricks they use though the food looks amazing, it's not you cannot consume it, it's not appetizing.
Yes.
So it is a challenge for home chefs, and a couple of simple tricks or tips that I would give. First of all, try and take some time out to just create plated food and photograph them. So don't think that you can just manage it while you're cooking. You finish your dish and you do your photograph and manage. So, kind of list down your signature dishes that you want to promote, and take time out, like set time aside to just create those and shoot those. Another thing, in every house, there is at least one place where you get good sunlight at
Yes.
some time of the day. And since we've spent 24 hours in the house, right through all the seasons, we know which patch that is, right? So
Yes.
find that patch which gets this reflected sunlight at some point in the day, not direct sunlight, but reflected sunlight. Direct sunlight would give you very harsh shadows. So try and find a time when it's reflected off the neighbor's building or something. And that's your spot, that's your place for shooting, because natural light is the best light for shooting anything, especially food, because it has to look fresh and natural light cannot really be created by any other artificial light available at home. At least, professional photographers can do that, but not
Yes.
at home. And I think portions, that's also pretty important, because when people are looking at something on their phones or their laptops, it's pretty tough to understand what the portion size is, even though you've written your grammage and numbers and so on. So when you're shooting something, try and put a scale next to it. Scale, I don't mean scale, the foot scale. I mean, put some object next to it
Relative. Yeah.
which has universal scale, which everybody knows what size it would be. And it could be a key, or it could be a ring, or it could be just a glass, it could be anything, or a coaster, but something that gives scale to your dish. And that's also quite important, because people are trying to guess otherwise, and we don't want people to get a bad surprise that they imagine the dish to be of certain abundant quantity, and what they got was very little, and that's really a poor surprise to get. We don't want to give that. So just couple of these, lighting, scale, and trying to stay true to what you cook. So yeah.
I think that's a. I must tell you what is the scale which has happened in my house. I will not recommend that to home chefs because professionally, like not all your audience might like it. But whenever I take out any food, my our younger kitten Dinky, whose birthday it is today, he will go and start sniffing. And if it's fish or this thing, I have to hold him like this. So a lot of our food pictures, you've got him beside, so you can compare it with a kitten. But that's, I mean, you might not want to do it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
professionally, but
Sure.
yeah. Hey, that brings me to a question of, I know it's a very food photography thing, but it's also design. The question of props,
Yeah.
because I've seen like a lot of design people, photographers rather, use a lot of props, and they might be books, garlands, incense stick, this that to build a theme. Versus there is um, certain people, including professionally, who focus primarily on the food first, and everything around. Is there any trend which you would like to say which works or which is more preferred in this nowadays?
So, trends are there. Of course, trends will come and go. I mean, if we see the trends from the bloggers to, food TV programs to anything at all, there'll be trends. There'll be sometimes a trend of top photographs and, top view, and there'll be sometimes a two-thirds view, and so on and so forth. But what I would, I mean, this is especially for people who are going to be doing it themselves and who want to promote their own brand. I think, they should stick to their own aesthetic, because home chefs also stick to their own method of cooking, their own method of infusing their own tastes, and their own tricks and secrets and whatever. So they should build their own persona. I don't think they should take from somebody else. So if their own aesthetic tells them to add a lot of things around, because their house is built like that, if their home is built with a whole lot of artifacts and objects, and they like these curios and little things and patterns and so on, then their photographs should reflect that. And if they like a minimalist place, and they live a clean, minimal, no colors, or muted colors kind of interior, then that's their personality, and that should reflect too. So I think that's the only way you will stand apart from each other. Otherwise, all home chefs will end up looking like each other, and again, that's not something we want. happening, right? Because each of them has their own expertise and own persona and own character and own little secret to what they put in the dish. So I think all of that should ideally reflect. So look at it as you know you are cooking for somebody else, and you are
We had to take a little internet break, but Ashwini is back. And Ashwini, you were telling us about the importance of bringing one's own persona to design.
So building any brand is something which is an inside out activity. So you have to basically look inwards and see your own values, see your own characters, beliefs, and bring that out into what you present to anybody. So whether it's your own personal brand, or whether it's the food that you're serving, or it's the brand that you're building for your food, it has to be you. It has to reflect you, and that's the only way it can be very unique, and that's the only way it will connect to somebody on a personal level. And the moment somebody feels any brand talking to them personally, that's a big win, because
Hmm.
that's the ultimate, right? If I feel my brand is talking to me only, and that's the moment, that's the magic.
Can you give me any example of, like, say, big brands who've been able to achieve this, either something you've worked with or even otherwise, like you've been a jury member for so many people, like a really big brand where if we now think of it, we'll realize that, they're also actually talking to us at a personal level. Any thought
So,
which comes to
so
mind?
big brands is kind of tough, because the really, really big brands have to cater to multicultural, multi-geographic, multilingual kind of communication. And even there, I think there are certain universal truths that certain brands tell you. I mean, for example, and it's not because I want to really promote a big brand, but when Coca-Cola told us open happiness, it's so universal, and yet to each one happiness means something else. So it was a lovely way to say that we understand where you're getting what you need, but your happiness is something that you will define. We can only help you do that. So that was a lovely example in one way. Then I mean, on another level and on a much smaller scale, but very proudly so, because we've been associated with the brand, I'll talk about Paperboat. And I think Paperboat has given so many people this kind of a deja vu, or
Yes.
hey, that happened in my life. Hey, this is my story. So when we started putting out stories along with the packs, and people would sit and read the back of the pack with that little story of having climbed the mango tree, and having had a fall and bruised knees, and going home, hiding those bruised knees, and grandma finding that
Oh,
out.
yes. Yeah.
It's just it felt like it's my story. And we started putting out stories like these, and I think these also really worked well. But of course, it's a much smaller brand, and it's kind of getting there, but it's possible to do that.
But you know what I took out of this, Ashwini? I think that this is the strength of a home chef, like in a David versus Goliath situation, where sometimes people feel that once restaurants are back, hotels are back, I mean, who will come to home chefs? I think this is the strength of the home chef, to be
True, true.
able to bring their personality and connect with you at a person to person level. And like you said, they're big brand. So I mean, both of these examples you actually gave are from beverages. So there is a Coke, which is like a global
Yeah,
brand, and then there's a Paperboat, which is a local for vocal a brand which is emerging, and who
true,
knows, one day might become a global brand as well.
true.
But what this tells me, that there's space for everyone,
Absolutely.
and that's, and we should recognize our strengths. And which brings me to this, when you spoke to me about Paperboat, this giving this example of this story, and I could relate to it. I remember once when I was in sixth standard, I fell and grazed my knees while running, and I didn't want to tell my mom that. So there was, I took something out of the wash basket and wiped off the blood from my knees. And my Chota Mashi, my youngest aunt, was visiting us, and she's like my friend because age-wise we're missing. And it was a new top she just bought. So yeah, but and I've seen this, like just a couple of days back. We ordered a box of mangoes. I'm not sure from where, but they'd given the story of the farmer, this lady who,
Yeah,
and it makes this personal connect. So
sure.
Ashwini, any tips to home chefs, as in which are the parts where They can use design to tell their story. So the obvious things we think of are the food photographs which you put up or the stories on social media. But which all are the parts, like kind of the point where you're telling people about who you are, then people buy from you, and then you send the food to them, and then they eat it. Which are the parts where one can use design to leverage one's brand?
So of course, social media is the biggest one, and again for home chefs, I know they don't have commercial design help, so to say, or professional design help, but there are a lot of these apps that they can use. Like there are apps like Canva, where you can very easily create graphics without having learned graphic design or any of the fonts or layouts and all that. So just look for these, apps where you can create good looking visuals very easily. It needs time, it needs a little work. So, just the way you spend hours in cooking, you have to spend a few hours in creating these images. So that's of course one part for sure. The other part is the plates in which, or the plated, or the mats and whatever else happens around it. I think you can very, very carefully choose what you're using and so on. And you can build your own personal stories into each of these. Just the way you write, Kalyan, when you put out a plate and you write even a little story about where you got the plate from, for example, sometimes, right? Or something that reminds you of a smell at your aunt's place, like you just spoke about something back home. So these little stories are what make you unique, right? And I think all the home chefs need to remember that it's not only the food, right? It's also the little story that sort of reminds people of, or brings a smile to somebody's face when they are either ordering or getting it or consuming it. And I think that smile is very, very important, because the other challenge that home chefs face, and I know, I don't know how they overcome that. So people who like to cook and like to feed get an instant response from their family. It's almost
Yes.
like performing on stage when you can literally see your audience, and they either laugh or cry or clap or whatever, and you can almost see that, and then you can improve your next performance based on that. But for home chefs who are using the delivery channel, they are not able to get the real time feedback. They might be getting another WhatsApp or a comment on social media later, but they are not able to see people consume and the joy on people's faces, or that very satiated burp. They are not able to experience that or see
Correct.
that. So it's a big challenge. But to be able to create that connection between each other, the stories will help. So you tell a story, you get a story back. That's how the circle grows.
Tell a story, you get a story back. So that's really lovely. And also I've seen people leverage their own skills. Like for example, some home chefs are actually very nice in sketch or painting, and they sort of do that in their packs. I know a Bengali home chef in Chennai who's been using terracotta pots to send her food, so that makes them
Oh,
stand
that's
out. There's
lovely.
there's someone in Marina so that's Joyadita. Then there's Marina Balakrishnan in Mumbai who's doing Kerala food, where she gives a story of each dish. And then there's Geetika Saikia, whom I just interviewed for photography for her. She's from Assam, and she loves to dance. So
Mm-hmm.
even the first time I met her was actually at a pop up in her house, and she did the Bihu dance.
Mm-hmm.
And now, obviously, it's not face to face. So she's putting that element. So when you go to Geetika's page and you see, the videos of her food and all that, always starts with a little, Assamese tribal
Wow.
dance and
Wow.
all of that. So Ashwini, now I'm going to sort of move a bit away from design and
Okay.
almost make it like a foodocracy for her interview. And in my last question to you is that, I mean, you have right from the beginning of your career, set up your own agency enterprise, and it's been 3.5 decades, and then you've grown it, and it's gone from strength to strength. I'm sure you came across like a paperboard. You've come across your rocks and this thing, and then gone ahead. So, any learnings you'd like to share? Because most of our home chefs are anything between 3 months to at the most 3 years old. So, any tips on what needs to be kept in mind while building a business?
My God, that's a tough one. But let me
That's
try
why I kept it for the
and
end.
let me try and give three or four pointers that kind of should
Please
work
go ahead.
universally. I think first one is about values. So you have to decide your values at the beginning of your journey, and not compromise on those no matter what. And it's extremely important because there will be growth, and there will be growth in terms of geography, team, money, turnover, the dishes that you cook, the places that you reach, and so on. But if your value system is intact, you're going to go to sleep peacefully. And if you compromise on any of those values, then it's not worth growing. So I think that's if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to first decide your value system, that these are the things that I will not compromise on, and these are the things that I may be flexible on. And it's fine. There are areas where you have to be flexible when you get into business, but you have to know what those are. And those, you don't decide those when the situation arises. Those have to be decided at the beginning. So very consciously sit and do that. That helps. That sort of becomes like a lighthouse or a beacon, or you have to look up to something that's your own. The second thing is, never forget why you got into it. Like I got into graphic design because I enjoyed creating things and building stories visually. And if I the day I stop enjoying it, that means I'm probably doing something else. So major part of my time probably is in doing something else and not in building visual stories. So in times of crisis, especially, try and remember what you got into this for, and why you enjoyed what you enjoyed so much, and sort of realign yourself. This is almost like companies do rebranding. When they start seeing a gap between their vision and their audience and their what they do and what they sell, they try and rebrand because they want to realign. So you have to realign from time to time when you are in business for a long time or a long haul. And the third thing is, be open, because what one does today is not something that may work tomorrow. And there is an interesting book, of course, which says what got you here won't get you there. So just because you cook great meals and your family loves that, doesn't mean you will be a successful entrepreneur, right? So cooking is one part of it, serving great food is one part of it, but there are many other things that need to be managed, and those have to be managed with partners. So, like I always say, the story of elephant, you know,
I was going
you
to ask you that why elephant design, and I
yes,
can see the story of the seven blind men
absolutely.
in
So,
here.
so everything is a teamwork. So you have to remember as an entrepreneur also that you only hold one piece of the jigsaw puzzle, but there are many other people who will be holding the other parts. And unless all those parts come together, you don't see the big picture. So you have to always remember that you are not the only important piece of the puzzle. Other pieces have to come together. So always remember that, and create great partnerships, because those are the ones that actually see you through your next stage. Yeah, I mean, for now, this is what I would.
No, those are three amazing points. First of all, like be very clear about what your value system is. Two, remind yourself that what brought you into this, and three, remember that you're part of a jigsaw puzzle, which the seven men behind you are trying to
Yes,
solve.
yes.
So, thank you so much, Ashwini. I think that was lots of fabulous stuff from you to learn, which I think will be of use to home chefs. Is definitely going to be of use to me as a freelancer and to many people. And thanks
Thank
once
you.
again to your support to the home chefies.
Absolute
Thank
pleasure,
you.
Kalyan. All the best to the entire Home Chefies world.
Thank you. Do take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.